Let's talk Glasgow. Let's have a look at a headline that appeared in the Daily Telegraph just about, I think, 3 days ago. I could not believe this when I read it. Nearly 1 in 3 children in Glasgow doesn't speak English as a first language. Why is that? Well, effectively, Glasgow is a sanctuary city, and it is the asylum capital of the United Kingdom. But we go on from that because there is now really big demand for there to be a full grooming gangs inquiry. The SNP, they've had a lot of pressure, but they've ordered an independent review into grooming gangs in Scotland. It appears that what started in Yorkshire and Lancashire, actually the problem was much more widespread than we ever thought. And now one that is not particularly pleasant, but it's a shock. 1,200 cases of female genital mutilation in Glasgow alone over the last 5 years. Now, this suggests to me that Glasgow, the Scottish government, has allowed a lot of people in from cultures that are very different to our own, with results that are, frankly, pretty horrific. John Cry, your family's had a long history of looking at these issues in Yorkshire and exposing them. I mean, when you think about the argument, diversity, well, I haven't got a problem with a bit of diversity, but it's like the sort of the whole cultural nature of Glasgow is changing.
Well, there are different issues there mixed up. On FGM, does that mean there have been convictions involving 12?
Well, that's the point. There are hardly any.
Yeah, that's
hardly any ever.
I think there have only been a couple since it was made illegal, which is a few years ago now.
That's right.
So I'm wondering where that information is coming from, how they can... I'm not saying that they're making it up. All I'm saying is that I wonder how they can know there are 1,200 cases.
Well, there's actually an NHS estimate for costings.
Ah, right, OK.
That's how they do it. So since 2019, around the whole of the UK, the NHS estimate it's cost them £100 million.
Well, then the question is, why isn't this being reported to the police? And if it is being reported to the police, why aren't the police coming down in it like a...
But isn't that the same argument about Rotherham?
Yeah, it is the same.
Isn't this the same argument that people knew these things were happening and sufficient action wasn't taking place?
Well, that's what I'm worried about. I mean, that's why I raise it, because, what you mentioned the grooming gangs, and we talked about this last time. My mum was the first person to raise it. 2003, that's when it started. Well, it started before that, but that's the first time that it was actually raised with her and then with other people. But there was far too much of a culture, we've talked about this ad infinitum of, well, better not mention it, it might stir things up, it's all the problem.
But isn't the same happening in Glasgow?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like, if this is an NHS estimate, you assume that's accurate.
Yeah.
In that case, why aren't the consequences?
No, this is
and that's what I want.
John, Alistair, I mean, Glasgow is being changed with a speed and rapidity that nobody ever asked for, nobody ever voted for. These figures they're quite shocking.
Yes. I mean, the first thing I'd say, by the way, is that Lord Cry's mother was a hero in all of this.
Yes, absolutely.
I think, that's worth noting. Secondly, I think that it's quite clear that volumes of immigration have been much too high in Britain for years. I'm actually quite pro-immigration, but the volumes are just completely wrong. And the kinds of people are also wrong. I think the most important thing when it comes to immigration is the people who do come have to be limited in numbers. They have to be people who are going to become net contributors.
Yeah.
They have to be people who love Britain, who think, I love this country, I love its history, I want to be part of it, I want to become British, just like the American dream, there's a British dream. And I think that we haven't proceeded with that sort of immigration.
I agree with that, but look at where we are in Glasgow.
Exactly, and so things have spiralled right out of control. These numbers are far too high. Integration's not taking place.
So what do we do?
We have to do several different things at the same time. One of them is we've got to reform welfare for immigrants and for British people, I'd add. The second is we need to change our approach, the sort of cringe-worthy approach where we're not proud to be British, where we don't ask enough of people when it comes to integration, but not just integration in the sense of having a job and, you know, buying a house and being part of the economy of a society. I'm talking about integration in the sense of buying into that society, right? Loving Britain, loving the society, not wanting to change it, but wanting to strengthen it. And I think the Americans have long been much better than we have when it comes to that. But fundamentally, none of this is going to work or happen unless we drastically reduce the volumes of immigration, both legal and illegal, into Britain.
I don't disagree with that, Alistair Heath, one bit. But, John, we are where we are in a city like this. What the hell do we do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the headline, 1 in 3 children don't speak English, it actually sounded like 1 in 3 children don't have English as a first language. Now, that's not necessarily the same thing as not speaking English.
No, we don't know the drill down on that.
We don't. But I've got a lot of relatives who are Sikhs and who came, the first generation, came to this country in the 1950s. The next generation who were born here grew up speaking English. They spoke English from going to school, so from the age of 5. Spoke Punjabi before that. But if you met them now, they speak absolutely, you know, received English without an accent. That's partly because, well, I think maybe for 2 reasons. One thing is that in those days we only had terrestrial television. So what you had on in the background was the BBC or the ITV. Now there are channels in all languages. I'm not sure you can do anything about that. But also the parents, the first generation who came, as I say, to work in the 50s, they brought their children up to be proud of being in Britain, to be proud of who they were, and they attached great importance to education and speaking English.
Well, you may be right. It's possible that all these people who have English as a second language become fluent and become integrated, but I'm just suggesting the numbers are so big that may pose one hell of a problem.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably true. And, you know, one of the reasons why I objected to the European Union, always did, was I never agreed with freedom of movement. I always thought, I couldn't understand why people on the left, why trade unionists in particular, thought freedom of movement was a great thing. It's not. I mean, it's sort of like freedom to be exploited by the lowest common denominator. But now we've, I mean, I know a lot of people won't agree with this, but at least immigration policy can be made in London and the government is accountable for that policy. And it wasn't for a long time, for all those years inside the EU. British government successively...
Well, we are in control.
Nothing to do with us.
No, we are in control. We've made an absolute mess of it.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, so just a quick sort of last thought on this, Alistair, from you. Shabana Mahmood has come in as a new Home Secretary, and she's looked at the camera, and she's been very tough, and she's given a lot of analysis that you would agree with. Do you think they'll deliver?
I don't think they'll deliver everything she's saying, no. I just don't think they'll be able to get that past some of these MPs. And also, I'd say that her words are very good, but I suspect that the detail of her policy doesn't actually go far enough. So I'd actually go further than she wants to go on certain issues. But I think the bigger problem is the left generally, right? Because I think a lot of people on the left think that what she's saying is anathema. They consider her to be very right-wing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but the Greens are campaigning on no borders at all.
Oh, right. I mean, I think that's completely insane, but I think there's 20%...
Mad, isn't it?
I think 20 or 25% of the population will probably agree with this open borders stuff. You know, the far left is growing in Britain, which is why the Green Party is doing well. But I think 75% of the population would be totally horrified by that.
I think it was a common sense majority.